Welcome back to the Aubergine Chef. Now today we'll be making Blondies, one of my favorite brownie-like bar cookies. I like Blondies a little bit more than brownies, even though I'm a big chocolate fan, don't get me wrong, I love a good brownie. But there's just something about a Blondie that kind of combines the moist chewiness of a brownie, but the deliciousness of a chocolate chip cookie or a cinnamon cookie or, a cookie. And just combines them together in a really just addictive way. Now, I just gotta warn you, there's been some storms intermittently in my area. It looks like it's calmed down, the sun's come out, but it's been thundering. So if you see the lights go out, that's what's going on. I'm gonna try and work through it anyway, because it's just electricity. Of course, I won't be able to use my oven or my mixer, but we'll work through it. Anyway, so I did find this recipe in one of my cookbooks, and what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna make Earl Grey brownies. Now, to make your own, well, let's go back a step. The whole flavoring process, there's many ways to flavor something. One of my preferred ways is to steep whatever liquid ingredient is in the recipe with the spice or the tea or whatever that I want to flavor it with. So, for example, if I were going to make, let's say, a whipped cream and I wanted it to taste like jasmine tea, I would actually, I would boil the heavy cream in a pot with some jasmine tea, let it steep, and then, strain out the jasmine, and then let it cool off in the refrigerator. And then you can whip it up the same way, just as long as the heavy cream is cold, of course. And it works, and you have a jasmine-flavored whipped cream. And that works for most things. You can flavor whatever it is on the stove, steep it, and then incorporate back into your recipe. However, the Blondie recipe is, like most cookies, is pretty dry. It has a lot of fat, it has a lot of butter in it, but there's nothing in it that we can really steep. There's no milk, there's no water, there's no simple syrup, there's nothing in it we can really steep. So another way we can do it is by using an extract. Now, this recipe does use a vanilla extract, but to make your own extract, you can use an alcohol. I prefer to use vodka because vodka has no flavor of its own, and so it really lends well to not adding anything. But I know a lot of people like to use vanilla extract with bourbon to get a nice combination of vanilla and bourbon flavors. So anyway, what you need to do, you don't really want to steep or boil your vodka, especially if it's pure alcohol, because it's just going to evaporate right away. So you have to steep it at either room temperature or a cold infusion, in the refrigerator. And all you do is you just pour much more vodka than you need. You don't want to pour, let's say you need a tablespoon of vanilla extract. You don't want to pour a tablespoon of vodka and let it soak in the tea, because what's going to end up happening is the tea leaves are going to suck up all the alcohol or the moisture, and then when you strain it, all you're going to have is like 3 drops. So you always want to make a little bit more extract than you plan on using. And then you just put in a little bit of tea leaves. You don't want to put in so much that it sucks up everything. You don't want to pack it in there. What you want to do is just put in like a teaspoon or a tablespoon, depending on how much vodka or alcohol you put in there. Let it steep. You can let it steep overnight. You can let it steep for a few hours. And then strain it out. And then put in new tea leaves or new spices or whatever you want to add or whatever you're trying to do. And then that's how you make it stronger. You just keep compounding it by adding more and more flavor over time. Other ways you can do it to concentrate the flavors, you can let the vodka evaporate a little bit by just leaving the lid off, or by gently simmering on a stove. I think leaving the lid off of the container will work pretty well because vodka evaporates pretty readily. And that's how you pretty much make your own extract. Making your own vanilla extract is really easy, especially if you use fresh vanilla beans. All you have to do is just leave the pod in a plastic container with vodka, and just every time you use a new pod, just put it in there, and then you'll have like 20 pods in there, and then you'll have a nice, strong vanilla extract. We actually used to do that at one of the resorts I worked at to make our own vanilla extract. It was cost effective because, vanilla beans can be expensive, and, you can only really use them like once or twice before they're like, they have no more vanilla beans in them. But they have just enough, especially when you have like 20 of them, to get that extra flavor out. So that's the trick. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that trick, that vodka extraction technique, to make our own Earl Grey extract. Now, I've only done it about 3 times. I've only compounded the flavor about 3 times, so I don't know how strong that's going to be, but you're going to have the general idea. At least now you know how to make your own extract. Super easy. So any other ingredients we need 14.5 ounces of all-purpose flour, or 2.5 cups, 3 grams of baking soda, or 1/2 teaspoon, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt, or 4 grams, and you sift them together in a bowl. You also need 2 sticks of butter, 1 at room temperature cut into pieces, and then one that was slightly melted. You don't want it to be completely liquid. Some solids should still be in the butter. You can melt it down in the microwave just fine. And you want to add that to 5 1/8 ounces of brown sugar, or 3/4 cup. And then what you want to do is you want to stir them together to melt the brown sugar down. I've never really done this in a recipe before, but this recipe said to do it, so I did it. You also need 3/4 cup or 6 ounces of granulated sugar. That can go straight into your mixer bowl. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the room temperature butter to the mixing bowl to cream them together, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. You also want to get out 2 eggs, 4 ounces, 2 eggs. Go ahead and break them, put them in a bowl. And you need 5 ounces of white chocolate chips, or whatever chocolate chips or whatever you want to use. You can use dark chocolate chips. You can use a candy bar, 5 ounces of candy bar broken up. And this recipe actually works really well with nuts too. Macadamias go really well with white chocolate. Hazelnuts go really well with white chocolate. Walnuts go well with dark chocolate. And you probably could use about a cup or 2 of that. I think a cup should be about as much as you want to do, especially if you're using walnuts because they're so big. And you probably don't want to put all of them in at the same time. What you want to do is you want to fold them in when we fold in the chocolate chips, some of them, and then the rest of them you want to sprinkle on top. So that way it's kind of like layers, or I don't want to say variations, but you know what I mean. So why don't we get started? Let's go ahead and cream together our butter and our granulated sugar. Oh, and I almost forgot, you want to prepare your sheet pan too. Grease it, put on a piece of parchment paper, and then pan spray it again, and you're ready to go. And so this is the little vodka Earl Grey mixture that I'm making, as you can see. It's gotten a little bit darker. The darker it is, typically the stronger the flavor it's going to be. Or the more concentrated the flavor is going to be. So keep that in mind too. Okay, so let's go ahead and cream together our butter and our granulated sugar. Remember, you want to use room temperature butter. If your butter is not at room temperature, you want to go ahead and warm it up in the microwave for about 10 to 30 seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and cream that together. Start on low speed. Okay, then you want to go ahead and add the eggs one at a time, scraping in between if you need to. Okay, we're going to add our butter brown sugar mixture in next. Okay, let's go ahead and add our Earl Grey extract, or your vanilla extract if that's what you're making. Go ahead and mix that in. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and add half of our mixture. Then we're going to work it in. We're not going to mix it all the way in. And then before we mix it all the way in, we're going to add the second part. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so once you have it mostly mixed in, not all the way, go ahead and add the second half. Okay. Before that's completely mixed in, we're going to go ahead and take it off the mixer because we're going to fold in our chocolate chips, which will also continue to mix it. Okay, so at this point, go ahead and add in your 5 ounces of chocolate. And if you want, or if you have any, go ahead and add some of your nuts. Go ahead and fold that together. Okay, once this mixture is completely folded in, or the white chocolate chips have been completely folded in, we can go ahead and put this on our prepared sheet pan. Okay, go ahead and press down the dough until it is even. Okay, once you have your cookie dough, or your Blondie dough, and a nice even layer, we can go ahead and bake it. Remember, we are going to bake it at 350 degrees, and we should bake it for about 30 minutes, but we're going to go ahead and check it around 20. And what you're looking for is a golden brown surface on the top, and it should start pulling away from the sides of the pan. Just starting to. It shouldn't already, because if it's already pulled away from the side of the pan, and it might be a little overbaked, and which means a dry product. To protect the bottom of it from burning, you can either double pan it by putting another sheet pan the same size into the sheet pan, or you can put an empty sheet pan on a rack below this rack in the oven. So if you're going to bake this on the middle rack, which you should, on the rack below it, which is probably like your 4th or 5th rack, you want to put an empty sheet pan, and that's going to help divert the energy, or the heat, sorry, divert the heat from directly hitting the pan, and that'll keep the bottom from burning. So let's go ahead and bake this at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. Okay, so our blondies came out of the oven. We're going to go ahead and release them, so I'll show you a trick on how to do that. Once they've cooled down, go ahead and run your knife along the edge of the pan if they haven't pulled away. Okay. Place some parchment paper on top, and using another sheet pan of the same size, flip it over, and it should come right out. Then we can take this parchment paper and get rid of it. Okay, and then we're ready to cut out our blondies. So if you want, oops, trim off the edges. Looks like it's going to be a little overbaked. So we'll go ahead and use a chef knife. So we'll trim off the edges, and then we'll go ahead and cut our bars. Okay, and with that, our blondies are cut, and so here they are. They came out pretty nice looking, I think, especially the ones in the center, because they got the least overbaked. They're actually a very good moistness. Okay, so that's how you make blondies. Now remember, we used an Earl Grey extract that we made ourselves using vodka and Earl Grey loose leaf tea, and we compounded the flavor for a couple days by soaking it for a few hours to overnight in the vodka, and then switching out the tea leaves with new tea leaves. So we would strain out the vodka into another container, put new tea leaves in, and then we let it sit again. We just kept doing that over and over again until we get the desired flavor. It'll probably take you a while to get a super strong flavor that's as concentrated as vanilla extract is. So I would say maybe like 7 to 10 times if you really, really want a strong flavor, although I only did mine 3 times. And it has a pretty okay flavor. So I definitely would do it at least 7 times, though, to really get that flavor really nice and strong, so that way it's nice and concentrated. And remember that your blondies also, you don't want to overbake them. You actually want to aim for a little underbaked, so that way they're still moist and chewy like a brownie or like a really underbaked chocolate chip cookie. So, but I mean, like if you want a more cakey or a more crunchy blondie, feel free to bake it a little bit longer if that's what you're looking for, because the caramelization and all that brown crustiness goodness is also only, can only happen if you actually cook it for a lot longer. So, like that nice browned, crisp, usually on the bottom, the nice browned layer usually has a little bit more of a complex flavor because it's been in the oven for longer and the sugars get to caramelize. Whatever you're looking for, feel free to do it. It's your recipe. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you learned a lot today. And remember, the Aubergine Chef, demystifying dessert one recipe at a time.